This is the horrific story of David Threinen in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, Canada in 1975. On June 15, 1975, in Saskatoon, two children living on the same block on 4th Street East rode their bicycles down to the riverbank. Their bicycles were locked up on the 800 block of Saskatchewan Crescent East. 9-year-old Robert Grubesic of 640 4th Street East was hanging out with his 12-year-old friend Dahrlyne Cranfield. Robert had gone out for a ride in a light blue jacket. Dahrlyne was wearing blue jeans, an orange top, and a blue monsoon jacket. They were officially reported missing 3 p.m. on Sunday, June 15, 1975. Police searched the riverbank with dogs, but no luck. A woman reported 3 days later, on June 18th, that she saw a male suspect luring the children around 4 p.m. into an alleyway as she was driving down Saskatchewan Crescent. He was holding their hand. The woman gave a description and a sketch of the male, which was published in the Star Phoenix that day. The police had already searched the river for bodies. An early theory was that the boy was throwing stones and disturbing traffic, and perhaps an annoyed driver stopped to teach the kids a lesson. Description of the man was between 17 and 25 years old, approximately 5'8", slim build, with dirty blonde hair to his shoulders, and acne. The two children had their photo printed for the first time in the Star Phoenix newspaper. Members of the International Steelworkers of America Union helped comb the riverbank for the children on June 18th. On June 20th, an anonymous donor offered a $3,000 reward, leading to discovery of the two children. The next day, June 21st, Dahrlyne's mother, Dahrlyne Cranfield, admitted that possibly her daughter had drowned. She had reached out to numerous psychics to help give clues. One said the children were safe in a house with a man and girl who were not married. A woman from Calgary said the children are alive and have been taken to the USA. Dahrlyne had two older brothers, both older now, living in Vancouver. Dahrlyne was described as a happy girl who liked to sing and play piano. She was a tomboy and loved sports and had just got a 99% on her spelling test the week before. Dahrlyne had just discovered the Indian trails down by the river, and her friend Robert had discovered the pigeons. By June 23rd, the reward was now $5,000. On June 25th, the reward was raised to $10,000. Many other private individuals said they would add more to the reward. A boy reported that on Monday night he saw Dahrlyne in a green car with wide tires. Dahrlyne's mouth was taped up. A human chain of 50 striking potash workers and Boy Scouts helped cover the riverbank, going through all shrubbery and bushes. The river was too turbulent to use a boat and was not safe to put men on the water, but a helicopter was used. At this point, Police Chief Kettles said if they had drowned, their bodies would have floated to the surface by now. A woman reported seeing a man slapping a girl's face with a boy nearby at Cumberland Square Shopping Mall. On June 26th, the 12th day that Dahrlyne and Robert were missing, her father Day announced he would trade places with either child if they were in the hands of an abductor. On June 27th, Don Richardson, owner of Richardson Machinery at 129 Avenue I South, made the offer to close his business and pay all his staff for a day to go out and hunt for the green car linked to the two missing children. Richardson Culvert said they would also let their staff members help if the police approved. A new sketch of the suspect was published in the Star Phoenix. By July 5th, 3 weeks had passed and no leads, and police had covered every angle. Fewer police officers were working on the case now, but two men would continue working full-time on the case. A helicopter was used again to search the river area. By July 12th, mediums and psychics from all over North America and England offered assistance. George McNullen, who had been 80% successful in other cases, predicted that they were still alive and taken by a relative and had headed east towards Ontario. All the other psychics believed they were still alive, but some believed they were in a wooded area and others thought they were in a gravel pit. After a gap of silence, one final article was published in the Star Phoenix on July 26, called Hope Fades for Missing Children. Dahrlyne and Robert had been missing 42 days and no results. July 26, 1975, late Saturday afternoon, Sutherland. 7-year-old Cathy Scott of 2 Rita Crescent and her friend 8-year-old Samantha Turner of 308 111th Street East were last seen in a Sutherland park at 6 p.m. Samantha was 4 feet tall, 65 pounds, with short brown hair and blue eyes. Cathy Scott was also 4 feet tall, 55 pounds, with shoulder-length blonde hair and blue eyes. Cathy was wearing a white halter top and white shorts. Samantha was wearing red shorts and a white halter top. With no leads on the first 2 missing children, Police Chief Kettles was frustrated and baffled by this new disappearance. Samantha and Cathy were seen at the Igloo restaurant at 1206 Central Avenue at 4 p.m. Immediately, 100 civilian volunteers and tracking dogs covered Sutherland and outlying areas. They searched garbage cans, containers, sheds, boxcars, fields, and the riverbank. On Sunday, the police went door to door. Samantha Turner's pair of shoes and a towel were found by the paddling pool at the Sutherland Recreation Unit. On Friday, July 25th, another girl had gone missing. 10-year-old Arlene Pryor of 142 Tucker Crescent was missing, but she was soon found staying with a friend. On July 29th, many comparisons were being made between the 2 pairs of children that both went missing on a weekend afternoon. The CPR terminal yard in Sutherland was being highly checked since they lived close to the railway yard. A panic had hit the city, and no parent trusted to let their child go off on their own anywhere. On July 30th, 15 RCMP officers combed the outlying area, talking to all farmers. On July 31st, a $10,500 reward was offered to help locate Cathy and Samantha. Star Phoenix reporter Ray Unger had covered most of the story in articles. On August 1st, he reported that all 4 parents were convinced that Cathy and Samantha did not run away. Samantha's father, Vern Turner, stated, "We can't eat, we can't sleep, we are just sick all the time." And he said, Samantha was petrified of the dark. If she'd wandered off in the bushes, she'd have headed for the lights as soon as it got dark. Cathy Scott was the youngest of 6 children. The other children were sick and crying. On August 1st, 2 young girls admitted they were lying when the day before they told police they had been abducted. They said they had been grabbed and thrown into a car in Young, Saskatchewan after 6 p.m. They said they escaped when the abductors stopped for gas near Kalonzi. They described the man in his car. The girls had made up the story because they stayed out late and didn't want to be punished at home. The police would not press charges as the girls were so young. The news was quiet, with absolutely no leads, but an update was published on August 9th, which was day 15 for Cathy and Samantha, and day 56 for Dahrlyne and Robert. Roadblocks and tracking dogs and RCMP were set up after a woman told police she saw 2 young girls get in the car with a man. Mrs. Nick Zielinski of 2810 21st Street West saw 4 young girls talking to a man in his 50s in an alley near her home. She yelled at the girls when she saw they were getting in the car. A man was reported to also have offered a different girl $20 if she would go into the bushes with him. This happened Thursday to a 9-year-old girl approaching the Mayfair swimming pool. He was described as tall, thin, in his 20s, with short dark hair, wearing sunglasses, blue jeans, and an orange check shirt. In total, a reward of $20,500 was now offered to find the children, but there were no leads, not even any crank calls. The most shocking news ever published in Saskatoon history hit the front page on Wednesday, August 13th, 1975. The day before, on August 12th, the decomposed bodies of all 4 children were discovered in 2 different locations. David Threinen, age 27, led police to an area 5 miles northeast of Sutherland in a bush partly covered by branches and other debris. Samantha Turner and Cathy Scott were found on day 18. Threinen led the police south of the city to dense grass and foliage in another bush to find Robert Grubesic and Dahrlyne Cranfield. Day 59. The bodies were all found in shallow graves. A press conference was given at 1 a.m. early on Thursday by the police. RCMP officers Stan Twist and Jim Kay were handed Threinen's file on August 11th. They found him the next morning at the Grasswood Esso changing a tire. They followed him back in the city and took him into custody. Threinen did not want a lawyer, and the police allowed him to chain smoke for his 8 hours of interviews that day. Police security was to be the highest in city history when Threinen appeared in court that day. City police received many disgusted, angry calls about Threinen. Only accredited press reporters were allowed in the courtroom. The coroner reported on August 14th all 4 children died of strangulation. David William Threinen, age 27, was listed as a truck driver in the newspaper, but had come back to Saskatoon in May 1974 and had worked at a carpet warehouse and then as a gopher in the Crown Tire Shop on Pacific Avenue. David was living at 310 32nd Street West. Threinen had been a foster child. He lived in Saskatoon in the 60s. His first offense as a teenager was April 3, 1965, carrying a concealed weapon and threatened 2 10-year-old girls at the Roxy Theatre. In July of 65, he was convicted of indecent assault on a female. He had also been charged for drugs and for vagrancy. He was convicted on charges of armed robbery in Calgary on November 26, 1970, and spent 2 years in jail. Angela Humer had died on June 27, 1972, and her decomposed body was found in a ditch northwest of Lethbridge on July 14th. Threinen was charged with the murder the next day on July 15th. He had been acquitted in Lethbridge in March 1973 on the charge of non-capital murder due to only circumstantial evidence. Karen Yuansu was murdered on April 23, 1975 in Edmonton at age 11. Her body had been found on April 24th on the riverbank wearing a blouse, 1 shoe, and 1 sock. She had been sexually assaulted. Police questioned Threinen in Saskatoon in August when he was arrested for the Saskatoon murders. Cases were similar except that this one was more aggressive, so it may not have been him. On January 15th, a 10-year-old girl in Saskatoon was led into his car. She was taken out into the country, and he attempted to strangle her with a scarf. She blacked out, and he dumped her out of the car 8 miles south of Saskatoon. On May 29th, in Saskatoon, he enticed a brother and sister into his car. When he walked around the car, the girl jumped out and ran away. He took the boy a short distance, but then stopped and screamed to get out. Threinen admitted to these events after being arrested for the 4 murders. On August 18th, he was charged with 4 counts of non-capital murder. More than 100 people turned up, but less than 40, including the parents of the murdered children and reporters, were allowed in the small room of the 2nd floor of the police station on 4th Avenue. On August 25th, at the Forest Reform picnic of Justice Minister Otto Lang, the parents of the 4 murdered children demonstrated that Sunday in favor of capital punishment. A crowd of 50 people waved signs calling for a reinstatement of the death penalty for murderers. Samantha's father, Vern Turner, said it was hard for him to accept he would help pay for prison fees to keep Threinen in jail for the rest of his life. On August 28th, Otto Lang planned to discuss government policies at a meeting at St. Philip's School. Instead, the capital punishment debate took over. Robert Grubesic's mother was there and broke into tears, stating, "I can't live without Robert." On November 18th, the preliminary hearing was held. The defense counsel was Red Grosky and Bob Munkler, and Del Paras and Wilfred Tucker represented the Crown. On November 26th, it was reported that Threinen was scheduled for a psychiatric examination. He was being held in the city police jail cell for the time being. His trial was held in February 1976 at the Prince Albert Correctional Centre. On February 9th, he pled guilty to all charges of murder. On February 12th, it was confirmed he had no psychiatric disorder, but he was severely disturbed by a history of antisocial behavior. He has poor control over his impulses and acts out aggressively. The prosecution stated he was the most dangerous person this province had ever seen. Threinen was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison. At this time, Threinen explained he saw Dahrlyne and Robert pushing their bicycles near the river. He invited them into his car to drive to an ice cream shop for a milkshake. The girl locked the bicycle up near the river, and the children willingly got into his car. Then he drove out into the country, and he parked in a wooden area. Threinen had no idea why he killed them. He said he had a split personality like Jekyll and Hyde. Threinen grew up in Humboldt. On his way back to Saskatoon, he stopped at the Igloo restaurant on Central Avenue in Sutherland and told the two girls, Samantha and Cathy, to get into his car. They just got in, and they were quiet as they were driven out to the summer fallow field north of Sutherland. After he strangled them, he sat there and cried for half an hour. Police had questioned Threinen for 8 hours on August 12th. He seemed relieved to be making his statement. He was sent to Matsqui Regional Psychiatric Center in Vancouver to serve his sentence on February 19, 1976. In October of that year, he was in a maximum security penitentiary in New Brunswick and was held hostage in a prison takeover. After 3 men were arrested, Threinen was interviewed. He said he was terrified. They had talked of cutting off his sexual organ due to his murders of children. Threinen asked a guard if he could have a razor blade to commit suicide. Other prisoners said David should be in a hospital, not in a prison. He's sick. Threinen was then moved to a psychiatric ward. 19 years later, Norm Fagnew of the National Parole Board and former police officer Rusty Cartier said the investigation had been badly flawed back in 1975. The 10-year-old girl who escaped from his car described a special speedometer in his vehicle. That information did not get shared around, and it came up again later. In 1994, Threinen was in the news numerous times as his parole hearing for the 20th anniversary was coming up. Even Threinen's mother did not want him released. She said, "He's not normal anymore." The Threinens still lived in Saskatchewan. They had only visited their adopted son twice, but still received letters from him. Cathy Scott's father, Clifford, revealed that he had taken a rifle with plans to kill Threinen outside the police station in 1975. He didn't pull the trigger as he didn't want to hurt any of the policemen guarding him. Clifford said his family's life was destroyed. His wife visited the grave every day for the first 3 years, and today they still visited every week. Clifford wished he had been executed. Dahrlyne's father, Day, was not allowed in the courtroom because police feared he would kill him. Threinen was age 46 in 1994. He was receiving intensive therapy at the Regional Psychiatric Center in Abbotsford, BC. In July 1995, his release was turned down. By that time, Threinen had a son and daughter and 2 granddaughters, but the grandchildren did not know who he was. A psych report revealed that Threinen dealt with expressing sexual instinct in socially unacceptable ways, pedophilia, and antisocial personality disorder. In June 1996, a newspaper article mentioned for the first time that he had sexually assaulted one of the 4 children. Threinen skipped his parole hearing that year. Star Phoenix reporter Joanne Paulson wrote an article in 2004 explaining how her younger brother, age 4, had gone missing. She had gone with her mother through the neighborhood, finally found him playing in a sandbox at a friend's home, but she remembered the panic her mother felt at the time. At this time, I was also 4 years old. My mother was at work and had left me with her friend Andrea to babysit me. But all of a sudden she could not find me and went into a panic, and neighbors helped search the block. She finally found me sitting in the bathroom. She didn't know if she should spank me or kiss me for the scare I had put her through. The Block Parent Program was started in Saskatoon to improve child safety after that horrific summer. David Threinen has not been in the news much for decades, but it's believed he is still locked away for the rest of his life and has so far spent 50 years in prison. August 12, 2025 is the 50th anniversary of his arrest and confessing of 4 murders in Saskatoon.